I want to tell you about a devastating martial art you may not have heard about. You probably know that karate, as it's known in America, is known in Okinawa as karate. There is a similar art called kamadati. You might get them mixed up, so I'm going to tell you the difference. In fact, you may already be practicing it. The more astute among you, or the ones who get my sense of humor, have probably figured out that I'm talking about commodity. Yes, karate has been made into a commodity, something that can be purchased. In case you don't want to listen to the whole video, here's the takeaway. For some, karate is a calling. For others, it's a business, and they practice kamadati. I've known people who originally had a calling because of their own personal benefit that they gained from training, and they wanted to share it with others. But somewhere along the way, some of them gravitated into the business of karate, and it's not the same thing at all. Now, my argument about what you might call the management of the karate school system is how it develops along certain lines. The system set up for the karate business in general is much like the system at large in government, politics, and industry. My big beef is that it pushes out sincere people who want to better themselves and also want to better others. And it rewards aggressive people and BS artists. It might seem funny to compare martial arts instructors to politicians, but the point is valid. The people who want to get to the top of the karate world are the ones who want lofty titles, adulation, and want to make money from teaching so they don't have to work a regular job. I don't think operating a business is a corrupt thing to do, even a karate business. But there's a completely different mentality among the many people who work all day and then donate their time at night or on weekends to pass on the karate that they love to other people, which is what I did for 50 years, and there are many like me. I'm not special. It's just that people like us don't have much in common with the commercial operator, because at some point, he's going to compromise his original principles in order to maintain control or make a buck or keep his prestige or hang on to a large community. I don't care what kind of business you're in. I won't support you if you compromise your original principles. By the way, I used to use Gillette's razors and shaving cream until the company bowed to the woke mob and started telling their customers, men, that they're toxic pigs. Because of that, people like me stopped buying their stuff, and they have suffered an $8 billion downturn. I don't buy any Gillette products now, and I use Barbasol shaving cream, an American classic, and a Bromley razor, which works great and is also useful for slitting your wrists after you watch a Gillette commercial, or after you watch something like this. Let's have everybody travel and pay a substantial fee to learn from a master from Japan, and then do basics like a bunch of robots. Now that you've done a bunch of these combinations, let's do them shifting to the side. Boy, that's hard. I feel myself becoming a more devastating fighter already. Now, it makes sense when you're starting out to do some kind of robotic training, especially for kids, in order to get the coordination. And this is the first kata I ever learned, as a matter of fact. But advanced trainees wearing black belts, paying to do endless basics, that's part of the karate business. And focusing on exacting form that's presented as the correct way, and making people with completely different body types make their bodies do very specific things, it guarantees that it will take a long time and much effort to satisfy the system you're training under, which is perfect for maximizing the amount of time that you're a loyal student and the amount that you pay into the system. That's a hidden part of the business of karate. There are also all the obvious parts of the karate business that you'd have to be a moron not to see. You pay for the lessons, but you also pay for membership in an organization. You pay for advancement, and gradings are held with regularity, so you're paying a fee to be evaluated, but then you pay a fee for the new rank if you get it. You pay for the special seminars that you attend. You pay to travel to them. And if you're in sports karate and you pay to go to tournaments, you pay to enter them. If you win, do you get your money back? No, you get a trophy. Even a slot machine in Vegas pays off sometimes. When did karate become a business? Certainly the beginning of it was back in Japan after karate was imported from Okinawa and it came under the Ministry of Education. Being part of the college curricula, naturally fees started to be charged. An official uniform was adopted and that had to be bought. Tournaments began and money, bit by bit, started creeping into what had been a secret, deadly fighting method only a generation before. When karate came to America, there were a few schools here and there, and some returning American GIs and some transplanted Japanese, like one of my old teachers, started teaching in America for a living, sharing what they loved. Not a bad thing. Two things happened that supercharged this whole field. One was the increasing presence of karate in the movies, particularly spy and adventure movies. When James Bond started karate chopping the bad guys, almost everybody wanted to know how to do that. This increased to a fever pitch years later with this guy. The other big factor, starting in the mid-1960s again, was the appearance of a new medium. Black Belt magazine appeared. At first a small print-run publication centered in California, which then got national distribution and not only represented the field, but marketed it as well. It was the brainchild of brothers Mito and James Uehara. Mito handled the magazine and James ran the martial arts supply company. The house organ advertised in the magazine. A former teacher of mine, who was a prominent figure in the Los Angeles area, was featured regularly in the magazine, and he told me Mr. Uehara didn't have any money to pay the writers to get stories, so he interviewed me often, and that certainly helped his karate business. With better distribution and more schools opening up, and with James's company being advertised in the magazine, very soon there was a market for martial arts equipment, and the gold rush was on. As schools began to multiply, tournaments started to happen, and movies and TV shows were regularly showing judo, karate, and kung fu being used by the heroes, and there was now a market for not only people to teach these wonderful things, but for martial arts entertainers. Once the entertainers gained popularity, the martial arts entrepreneurs weren't very far behind in their bid for fame. Alan Steen, owner of a string of schools and a successful tournament promoter, said it on the cover of Black Belt magazine. Karate is big business. So much so that today, years after Steen's tournaments, you see highly choreographed stuff like this. For me, it's telling that the original subtitle was "The World's Leading Magazine of Self-Defense," and yet inside they constantly referred to martial arts. You younger guys will be surprised to find out that the term martial arts wasn't used before this magazine came out. Oh, you say that's just a translation of Budo. Yes, that's what Mr. Uehara thought. But Budo, the martial ways in Japanese, refers to the modern forms that are character-building sports, as opposed to Bujutsu, the martial methods or arts which were used on the battlefield to kill people. And guess what? Karate has never been a martial art. It's a civilian art. Never used by an army, Swords, archery, horsemanship, spears, and even jujitsu were used by armies in Japan. Never karate. It was a deadly form of Okinawan weaponless self-protection that modern Japan made into a Budo sport. Splitting hairs, you think? Well, the language you use means a lot, and it influences thinking. If you use an umbrella term like this for all these different fighting methods, and they're all practiced in a non-lethal way, then the line is blurred between real combat and sports and entertainment. Somehow people came to believe that Bruce Lee was capable of throwing longshoremen through the windows of waterfront bars because they saw him kicking away in the movies. It results in the phenomenon of Chuck Norris jokes, like Chuck Norris will never have a heart attack because his heart would never be brave enough to attack him. People have an impression based not on ever watching Chuck win those early karate tournaments, or even being alive when they happened. It's based on movies and TV. Chuck won a lot of tournaments back in the old days, but I never thought of him as an invincible icon, partly because an old friend of mine beat him in one. So when I found out that there were hundreds of these jokes about Grand Master Chuck Norris, I had to examine this as a social phenomenon. And it leads us back to the term martial arts as that catch-all phrase that invites the person wanting to be a celebrity. Once it was shown that it could be done, all kinds of people started making movies to propel them to the top of the martial arts world. And the better it was for entertainment, the less it resembled real self-defense.
Look, I'm cute and I can kick Will Chamberlain if I want. My arms are ready to protect myself, don't worry.
I make action movies because I pumped a lot of iron and I was a pro wrestler, because that's like real fighting. Long before I was a Grand Master, I was selling blue jeans you could do impractical kicks in. Hey, you too can wear the tracksuit Bruce Lee wore in Enter the Dragon, and also the one from Game of Death. Do you think any of this crap has anything to do with saving your life? This is why people who train for serious combat laugh at martial arts. Karate has been just one commodity that people who put business first have sold to the public. I, for one, resent it. With people willing to grant superhuman status to celebrities who simply represent martial arts in pop culture, it's very easy for those at the top of karate organizations, or even just the head of a local school, to gain some kind of legendary status with their followers. I've seen the pathetic, insecure personalities of some of these cult leaders, and I'm reaching out to those looking for a better way. My advice is to bypass all the commercial stuff and find someone to train with who has a calling, not a business. There's still some good people out there. Let everybody else do commodity.